listening to the PR Wind Down Podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April Margulies and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down. Would you like to start with our segment on things I should have been trained on?
Well, yes, there's probably a lot of things, but today we will talk about some specific things that I should have been trained on. Not you, just me. So this is the thing that I should have been trained on. And it's what to do when a reporter ghosts you after the interview. So you do an interview with your client. You think that at least a story is potentially going to happen. And then you never hear from the reporter again. And you email them and you try to call them and nothing happens. And then you realize, sort of like on a date that you went on that you thought went okay, apparently the other party didn't necessarily agree with your take. And you never really know why.
Now, do you think that reporters ghost you after an interview because they didn't like the interview or because something else came up? They're no longer doing the story. They're leaving the outlet. They haven't told anybody they're quitting what they are.
I tend to think the latter of what you said, because I think that if the interview stinks, they usually tell you. But if they get busy with something else, or if they're like leaving that outlet in 3 weeks or they don't want to like tell you, those are usually the reasons why they vanish. So if the segment is things I should have been trained on, I don't know that there's that much that you can do. But it is nice to know when you're just starting out reasons why, and those could be some of the reasons why, so that you don't feel like you're crazy or that you did something wrong.
Right.
Now, the world has changed from when I started doing PR because people didn't like change jobs as much as they do now, you know? So it usually wasn't because they were leaving their job, because most of the time they weren't leaving their job. It may have been because they got too busy. But again, there was a lot more reporters doing a lot more stories. So that didn't happen that much. So I think it's just something that happens more now than it did. I don't know if you have. I
agree.
You do think so too?
I think so too. Yeah. In fact, I was going to ask you, I don't think I've ever had a reporter do an interview where they just weren't happy enough with the interview to do anything. I've had introductory interviews that I hoped would convert that didn't, but they never promised that they were writing a story.
Well, I've had interviews done where it was sort of in between those two, where it was not a full introductory, like, hey, let's just get to know each other. But it also wasn't like, hey, we've got news coming up and like, okay, I'll do a story on it. And those were usually with people who were too smart for their own good on my side, the client, where they went on and on and on for, you know, sometimes almost up to an hour answering questions for 20 minutes. And so then the reporter was probably not even paying attention anymore, couldn't really grasp what the interesting news or aspect of it, and really didn't have anything quotable. So they ended up not using them.
Mm-hmm.
I did also have, not that long ago, a reporter agreed to an embargo, and maybe it was even an exclusive, and then vanished. And we're like, what? We held everything off for this reporter. And then the reporter came back and said, after, you know, we went back and forth like more than one time. Oh, yeah, we'll do it on this day. Vanishes. And then was like, well, that's not really what I would write about anyway. After the embargo was over. And it was from a major media outlet. Major. So
that stinks.
Screwed us because we couldn't go get an exclusive somewhere else because we thought we were getting the exclusive with them. Would not respond to my email or another person on the team. And then didn't even give us a response until after the release was already out. So by then it was too late. Nice.
How did the client take that?
Luckily, the announcement and the client, it was interesting enough that a lot of other media coverage came out around it. I mean, like dozens of clips. But of course, this was the major media outlet that you're getting the exclusive with. So, you know, that was like the number one shot. I think it damaged me in the eyes of the person who contracted me. Nothing that I could have done about it. But I do think
you ended up looking like a flake or something, even though
I didn't really. Right? Any rational person wouldn't have blamed it on me, but I was the one connected to it, so I kind of took the fall. I mean, Nobody said anything directly, but I always had the suspicion of that. And I actually haven't thought of it until just now. So I'm having a flashback. No, but what do you do in that case?
So we had a team member who had an exclusive with USA Today, similar to Laura's story, and it was all set to go. And then the reporter left and went to a new outlet.
And so the story just got lost in the ether?
Yeah, just gone.
Ugh.
Isn't that terrible?
So how do you get trained on that, right? This is what we're trying to like...
Or because the question is what to do. Like, what should we have been trained to do? So one piece of advice I have is not to be shy about contacting them through other means if they have stopped responding through their email. And sort of assuming that probably what happened is they left the outlet or something along those lines, right? Personal tragedy, whatever. But they're usually on LinkedIn, they're usually on Twitter, they might be on Facebook, they may be on Instagram, wherever you can connect with them. Or you could even kind of, I mean, in today's day and age, like, you never know if you didn't hear from somebody because there's some horrible tragedy in their life around somebody with COVID or they're in the hospital or, I mean, I've literally had contacts within the last year who have vanished for a month and come back and said, I'm so sorry, I was in the hospital with COVID,
Mm-hmm. Well, right. That, of course, happened in the past year and a half or so.
So you can always say, especially nowadays, to anyone really. I mean, I even sometimes had done this with prospects. If I didn't hear from them, I thought we had a great connection and I thought it was going somewhere and then they vanish. Like, hey, I didn't hear from you. I'm actually starting to get worried. And I don't say that if I'm not actually starting to get worried, but there are certain people where I start to think, this really felt like
this doesn't make sense.
This doesn't make sense. Something is wrong.
Right.
And in fact, I did talk to somebody recently and something had gone horribly wrong.
What about if you get ghosted and it just doesn't seem to make sense to go to the reporter's editor or, 100%. Somebody senior or what, right?
100%. You can definitely go to a colleague or an editor and say, hey, I had this conversation going, even for the conversation if you want, right? Send it to them and say, hey, I haven't heard from him, her since X date, and I'm really concerned. Is everything okay? If not, is there something I can do? Is there anyone else that might want to pick up this thread?
Right. So the answer I have to so many of our issues is just keep it moving and give the story to another reporter at another outlet or even at the same outlet and see if you can get another taker.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing is that the longer you're around and the more reporters, and this isn't always going to be possible, but if you know that somebody has a propensity for flaking, then I wouldn't rely on them to do something like that, right? I wouldn't give them an exclusive. If you've worked with them before and had issues with responsiveness, definitely skip the report that's right. But maybe if they sometimes are really communicative and then disappear, maybe don't offer those reporters an exclusive, just in case it's in their sort of DNA. Right.
There is a reporter at another major media outlet who has said yes to me that he will talk to my clients 3 different times. And every single time he flakes. One time I called him, he's like, how did you get my number? And I was like, well, you said you were going to talk to my client. And he's like, who, what? I don't even remember. Like, I don't know. And then 2 more times after that, yes, I will talk to them. And then never, ever, ever followed up, never came through. So the problem is that he is the person that in that space, that's one, of not as many reporters as there used to be, who would be the one to be interested, or it would make sense to talk to these clients. And he keeps doing it. So I stopped doing it because I kept getting like, oh my God, so-and-so from this big, publication is interested to talk to you. And then he flakes and then I look like an idiot in front. It happened 3 times to 3 different clients. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the space of 2 weeks. Horrible, right? And at another company I worked for, he did a huge amount of interviews with a client of ours and never wrote the story. Didn't really ghost. I mean, talked to at least 7 or 8 people involved in like this bigger story and then never wrote it as far as I know. What are you going to do? It's the world in which we live. No. I mean, go work for Facebook, I guess. They'll always be willing to write about you, good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh, boy.
That's turned into crisis communications, though, right?
Oh, man. Has it ever? We'll have to get into that later. In the meantime, we have Kaila in our waiting room.
All right.
You ready for her?
Yes.
Okay, here she comes. All right, so our guest today is Kaila Pryzmus. She is the CEO of KMO Consulting, and she also specializes in generating high-rev affiliate-based PR programs for direct-to-consumer brands. She also trains PR professionals in the new age of affiliate marketing and on how to secure top-tier affiliate-driven articles. So she is here to chat about affiliate PR, which is something I know we've chatted before about in the past with Allie. But given that this is Kaila's focus now, I'm very excited to hear from her some of the tricks of the trade.
Totally. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so glad to have you. Well, I know that now if you're a consumer brand and you want to be in any news story, it's pretty much imperative, right, that you be on affiliate network.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of like the perfect storm / being at the right place at the right time for me of figuring this out. Spent the first decade plus my career in traditional PR, actually in the B2B space, which is so funny. And then when I made my way to LA and started freelancing, I was freelancing for some consumer products. And this would have been 2019, Q4 of 2019. And I was pitching, doing everything that I was supposed to be doing, right? I was receiving crickets. Like I was not receiving the responses that I needed to. And so it almost drove me to a point where I was like, well, maybe I just don't even want to do PR anymore. And a creative marketing agency in Santa Monica reached out to me because I had PR experience. And they had just acquired an affiliate marketing business as part of their new offering. And they needed someone with PR experience to help expand that channel into the top tier publishers. And I'll be honest, I took that job without even knowing what I was going to do. So right place at the right time, right?
Right.
And so I took the role and quickly realized, oh, this is what's going on behind the scenes at publishing groups. And no one has time to even tell us PR folks what's going on. It was like the floodgates opened. And, I started there February of 2020. And then COVID hit March of 2020. And not only was I realizing this kind of new space in the publishing world, but now affiliate marketing used to be the forgotten marketing channel that everyone and their grandma needed to have from a brand perspective because it was more of a win-win, low risk, approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For anybody who didn't catch the other episode on affiliate marketing and hasn't heard of this before,
it sounds a little bit.
Can you kind of break it down like you're explaining it to your grandma, just the very, very basics?
Sure. So affiliate marketing is really made up of affiliates. And affiliates is any person or place online that can drive traffic or sales back to a brand's website. So the easiest way for people to comprehend it is an influencer with a swipe up function. An influencer on Instagram, they likely in their swipe up function is a trackable affiliate link that is generated from an affiliate program. So that's affiliates. When affiliates drive sales for a brand, they receive a commission. So brands don't have to pay their affiliates unless they're making money. So it was a very safe win-win marketing strategy when COVID hit versus working with an influencer and having an upfront payment without a guarantee of results, or on the publisher side, having cost per click campaigns, where again, clicks don't always guarantee revenue. So way back in the day, I don't know how far back, but affiliate marketing at its base level started off with like coupon websites, coupon promotional websites, and that's expanded into a more elevated world of influencers and editors pulling these trackable affiliate links in order to receive a portion of the sales that they drive for the brands.
So if you're a brand and you're hearing this,
yes,
how do you get an affiliate link?
Okay, so it all starts with an affiliate program on an affiliate network. There are various options. I would say to most, there's 4 or 5 notable affiliate networks that brands join. So there's not a ton to choose from. And so as a brand, you join the affiliate network, and that's where you link your affiliate network with your website's shopping cart. So that is where you integrate your affiliate network with your website shopping cart. So that's where if a sale is made using an affiliate link, it is tracked within the affiliate network. And within the affiliate network, that's also where you approve or decline affiliates. So I always like to kind of compare it to like an Instagram account. You have all your metrics on the back end, you approve people that follow you, set up campaigns or whatnot. So it all starts in the affiliate network.
And are there affiliate networks that are favored by journalists or most used by brands that are doing PR?
There are a handful that are top picks. You know, some Rakuten or Linkshare, Pepperjam, ShareASale, and Impact are probably the 4 that I use the most. That's kind of the goal, is to get publishers to join in network. But there's also sub-affiliates called Skim links that act as the middleman. And if you think of how many brands editors or publishers write about, it's a full-time job even joining every individual brand's affiliate network or affiliate program. So instead, most have one account with Skim links. And so every brand affiliate program, I say, add Skim links first and foremost. And then your brand is searchable within Skim links, and it's a really efficient way for editors to pull a tracking link.
And so they can find them without you even pitching them the link.
Exactly.
I see. I didn't even know this. This is
interesting. And I've had clients that even find that old organic articles from even years ago are having Skim links being added to it because it's still driving revenue because it's optimized and showing up in Google results.
I didn't know that that reporters or editors, if they're already in the Skim links network and they're searching for, let's see if brand X is on this so I can add them to my article and include a hyperlink that's going to give me a kickback. So they can actually seek out brands on Skim links without you even pitching them or giving them some sort of a special link.
And keep in mind, affiliate PR is at the very end of the sales funnel. So we're talking that this happens mostly with brands that already have a really high level of brand awareness. Let's say if you're writing about Nike, you know that Nike's going to convert. It's a well-known brand. If you're not connected with their PR team, you could search within Skim links and still monetize on that content. It's fascinating. It's brilliant, actually.
No, it's amazing. Laura looks like she's thinking very hard.
Well, I mean, when I tell people who I have worked with who are even older than I am, or people who are younger than me who are in really B2B PR, and I explain this to him, because the only reason that I even know is because I started to dabble again in some consumer PR. I wouldn't know this either otherwise. And so I share this information and they are horrified that this exists. And they had no idea because they started PR, some of them, in the 70s or whatever, and others just have never done consumer PR, but they've done, B2B PR. And this kind of thing just does not exist. So the fact that it's a necessary aspect of consumer PR now, and it blows their minds.
Yeah, I see it seeping into B2B. Think of if you had a newsletter and you partnered with Cision. Cision could have an affiliate program and you could promote Cision in your e-newsletter to other PR businesses and get a kickback for any Cision signups. The layers that this can go across to all types of businesses, it's only going to continue.
Wow. So isn't that advertising? I mean, isn't that?
That's fair. That's fair. It's not. It's funny. I had a call with one of the top contacts at Condé Nast, and he very much talked about how, yes, it's affiliate, but at the end of the day, it's organic. So if you're bringing my editors a brand or a product that's not going to resonate with my readers, I don't care if you're paying us 100% commission, we're not going to write about you. So there's first this organic door that you have to get through. And then it's, okay, do you have the qualifications? What's your commission rate? And you go from there. So first and foremost, it starts with organic. And that's where, not only am I passionate about like training PR professionals, but there's a whole industry of affiliate marketing agencies that are just way too salesy and now have no idea how to get their brands or have these top tier publisher relationships because they're coming off too salesy and not thinking like an editor. They don't have that editor cap on.
What are some of the things that you need to know to be able to play in both spaces?
From the base level of not managing the affiliate marketing side, and you just wanted to play in this space. Let's say your client had an affiliate program and you wanted to leverage that affiliate program and help them get more coverage. It really starts first and foremost with your media list. And it's so funny, I even bought a couple of print magazines and looked at their like contact list. And for Allure, they have all of their commerce editors under their audience development team. So it's a completely separate team of commerce or market editors. Those are the key words and titles that you need to look for, e-commerce or market. And that means that they are dedicating their content to brands that have affiliate programs. So make sure your media list is full of those contacts. And then in order to kind of play in this space, it really is just letting the editors know that this brand has an affiliate program. This is the link to join, or here's Skim links, and this is the commission rate we can offer. It's really that simple. But if you don't include that in your pitch, they're going to assume that you don't have an affiliate program.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know we talked about this before, but what's the percentage you have to be at to get editors' attention?
20% of the total sale that article drives.
Gotcha.
And it seems daunting. And I geek out over the numbers. It's actually in a brand's favor to almost break even because their overall cost per action is, I'm seeing across the board, $10 or less, which is crazy for any brands trying to deal with paid advertisement right now with social ads with Facebook or Instagram. I don't live in that space, but I'm told it's a lot higher. And the new customer acquisition is really high. I'm also seeing like an average 70% of the sales driven by top tier publishers are new customers. So you tell a brand that and they'll be like, okay, well, most, depending on their margins, they are more than willing to give up 20% of the sale.
Right. Well, it's things they would not have gotten otherwise at all, right? So
yeah.
Now, can anyone go on and find, a brand on Skim Links and post it on their blog or their Instagram or whatever? Or do you have to be somehow otherwise approved? How does it, how do you safeguard your brand if you're on? Because I can imagine some brands thinking at this point, well, I don't want just anybody to take my link from Skim Links and start publishing it in some off-brand publication.
Totally. Okay, that's a great question. One of the first things that I do is I submit a ticket and I restrict coupon affiliates from accessing the brand because that's actually more harmful. So there are restrictions that you can set within Skim Links. In terms of specific articles, that level of restriction I'm unsure of, but I do know you can monitor transaction by transaction and void. You have a 30 to 60 day window to void commissions, like void transactions, so you're not on them. This is big with fashion clients of mine. There's a lot of returns that are processed from consumers, and so brands don't want to pay a commission on a product that was returned. So there is a window to be able to go through and process returns or voids within the affiliate program.
Nice.
Oh, right. Interesting. Wow. I mean, so that becomes a whole job and industry unto itself, right? Making sure that people aren't getting charged 20% for things that they, actually have to return and give their money back to.
Let's say a brand finds out that Bitch Magazine and they think it's like not their, that's a magazine, right?
I've never heard.
Isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, let me come up with a different example. In my head it is, but now I'm questioning myself because everyone laughed. Let's say a brand is featured on Cigar Aficionado. Is there a way for that brand to say, I don't want them to generate any revenue from having included us?
Yes. So if you want to restrict a publisher as a whole, I believe that that is doable. From an affiliate level, yes, I believe restrictions are available. Let's say
you don't like the article that they published. You can't just like renege.
Yeah, okay. That's where I would go in and avoid transactions. But also, you want to be a good partner with the publisher. And if this is a 2019 article that's still driving revenue for your brand because the publisher is optimizing the content, you kind of have to weigh out the reward versus, what you're paying out. So it's very case by case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And what about bloggers or influencers? Same thing, right? You just have to go in and manually change those. So do you get notified if, Susie, the blogger, posted your Skim links thing in her blog?
You don't get notified. This is where the management side comes in handy. I choose to look at the transaction report for my clients. And so that's just another layer of management to provide some peace of mind.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. That seems very important. It seems like a very big job.
Yes, but it very easily becomes like a no-brainer, just kind of part of the workflow,
Mm-hmm. Right. So what are some final thoughts for people on, what they should know about affiliate PR that they don't, or most people don't?
Yeah. Oh boy. That it's inevitable. I would actually encourage brands to get curious or embrace the idea of organic PR. It's not dead completely. And I don't want to go on record saying it's going to be dead completely, but there is this new world. If you are trying to sell product at the very end of the sales funnel and want to be in gift guides or product roundups or new product features, affiliate is a very important aspect in order to be featured in these top tier publishers. And also just encourage PR professionals to be curious and not shy away from it, because from a pitching and response perspective, it's really fun because your media list is a lot smaller and the response rate of pitching commerce editors versus a really busy beauty editor, I have found the conversion rate of my efforts are a lot higher, which makes the PR job a lot more fun.
I can imagine that for sure. Yeah, it's a lot less striking out.
Yes,
absolutely. A lot more home runs.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Laura, but are you guaranteed? Right. So do you still have to pitch it though, even though you have the whole affiliate?
Yes, 9 out of 10 times I have to pitch in order to get coverage. The world where editors are just searching for brands and Skim links is like 5%.
Right.
So the pitching is the most important part of the job. But there are some nice to haves if you have a solidified relationship with an editor and they're just writing a roundup trend piece where they know your brand fits it. You might get some nice organic inclusions. Absolutely.
So you have to do the affiliates and then you have to pitch it as though you normally did. But in that pitch, you say, this product is part of XYZ affiliates, and then you're like ahead of the game.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And do you include the percentage in your pitches?
I do. Yep. I play around with a lot of subject lines. If I know, if it's a brand that has less awareness, I will lead with like the 20% commission or 25+ commission. If it's a brand that has more awareness, I'll probably lead more with the specifics about what I'm offering. But I always end the pitch with, my brand has an affiliate program on this affiliate network. Here's the sign up link, or you can find them on Skim links. I can provide 20% commission. And even I have clients where I just do the affiliate management and I partner with PR agencies and I provide that sentence for them to include in their pitches.
Nice. So awesome. Well, Kaila, let people know where they can find you and if they want to sign up for a masterclass, how to go about that.
Yeah, so if you want to sign up for the masterclass, you can email my colleague, hgerber@camoconsulting.org. And you can find us on Instagram at camo.consulting or online at camoconsulting.co. I have to like remember all of the info. But if you just Google KMO Consulting, you're going to find me.
KMO Consulting. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Kaila. Really appreciate your time, and it's been great having you on.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye. Awesome. Well, it's a whole new world out there, Laura. Are you distressed as well? You look distressed.
No. No more than usual. I've got a meowing cat over here who's
I know, I
stopped.
see her.
But she was like ruining my furniture down here.
Oh,
to
that's
be
fun.
Naughty.
Okay.
Meowing. Next. You want to know what's next?
Yeah. Is it our anonymous horror story?
I'll tell you what's next.
Okay.
It is. It's our anonymous horror story.
All right. Let's do it.
I once had a freelance client that was offering to pay me a lot of money. I mean, the monthly budget they had seemed to be very high for how far along they were as a business. They were a brand new mobile app for parents. Was it too good to be true? Maybe. But maybe my hard work had just paid off and I was being overly skeptical. So I decided to go with it. They paid right on time the first month and things sailed along smoothly. They paid a little late the second month, but all seemed well. But the third month, they paid 30 days late, which I complained about mildly, but I didn't want to rock the boat too hard either for fear I would scare away or peeve my highest paying client. Here comes the too good to be true part. Month 4, they didn't pay me on time. But I now had evidence they would eventually pay. But when month 5 came and they hadn't paid for month 4 and didn't pay for month 5 either, I had to screw up my courage to tell them that I was going to have to pause work until we settled up. Once I did, the truth came out. The funding they expected to come in had not, and they were unable to pay either invoice. Gasp, the horror. What was I to do? I had done thousands of dollars of work for them, and none of it was compensated for. They offered to pay off the invoices in monthly installations. I agreed. This, like before, went smoothly at first. $1,000 a month until we were square. Then they missed a month. Then they paid $800. Then they ghosted me. We still had $6,500 to go until we were square. Then they resurfaced with a horror story that sounded something like a cross between an episode of Dateline and a Saudi prince Ponzi scheme email. They offered to pay $500 per month beginning 2 months later due to, quote, personal drama. So I waited 2 months. I thought, I'm not an asshole who can't empathize with someone's personal life drama and heartache. But when the next payment was due, nothing. No payment, no email, no text, no response to email, no response to text, no response to voicemails, nada. What do I do now? Go to collections? Sue them in small claims court? Help!
It was a very good dramatic reading, Laura.
Try. This is my drama class. Yes, go to small claims court. The end.
I mean, it does seem to get a response faster than collections. And the truth is, even after a summary judgment in small claims court, you will likely have to go to a collections agency or a sheriff to secure the funds for the summary judgment.
Right. In this case, I think that's going to happen. I filed something in small claims court once and it got the other party to pay.
How?
When they got notice that I had filed, they called me and we settled. I think because they knew they would probably lose, so they just gave me the money. It wasn't even a huge amount of money, but I was like, why am I paying this?
Right. So small. Yeah, I like it. So Laura's like, small claims. Let's move on. No, I mean, there's
clearly nothing else that this person can do that they haven't already tried to do, right?
Right.
So, and as you and I have discussed, it depends what state you're in, but some states will pay $6,500, others will pay only up to $5,000.
Oh yeah, the maximum for small claims is different in every state.
Yeah.
Right. But then I think the other thing to just keep in mind is that you're still going to have to go secure the funds from them, even if,
right,
depending on how cooperative they are, right? So it might be like Laura said, where, you know, you file and they get scared and they pay. And then it might be the kind of thing where they try to ignore that. They don't show up for small claims. They don't respond to any response saying, hey, I got a summary judgment against you in the court of law. And then you have to figure out how to
garnish their income if they have it.
Yeah.
You can put a claim on like their, I don't know, car or something. I mean, I think there's a lot of things, but it is a pain in the neck.
But it's a pain. For thousands of dollars, it's definitely worth it, even just the principle of the thing, you know?
Yeah. I agree. That's me. I'll come after somebody for the rest of my life for $50. So, and that is why a lot of people do not like to work for themselves.
Yes.
If you have a full-time job, you normally are on just a regular pay schedule and you get paid every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it is, and you don't even worry about it. I know there are companies that's not the case, but there's millions of companies where you just get your paycheck when you get your paycheck. Mm-hmm. You don't have to write out invoices and chase people around and ask, where's the money? I mean, it's a big pain in the neck.
It is. Yeah. It's a whole other thing. It can be a full-time job. Between that and trying to file a lawsuit and go through collections and stuff, it can be a lot of work.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay, good. So should we move on to something a little more chipper?
Yes. Do we have a news story that we want?
We do. We have. So there have been a few stories recently, and this has started to come to my attention. There's a lot of issues with companies that are making vaccine mandates and things like that, and then facing lawsuits. And so I think
all sorts of flights have been canceled, and like the whole schedule is now screwed up, probably countrywide, if not worldwide.
More than 2,000 flights since just Saturday have been canceled. I think there's something interesting here that's been coming to my attention. There was also in Western Michigan University, basically they were going to mandate that their student athletes be vaccinated, and 16 of the student athletes decided to sue the university, saying it infringed upon their religious liberties. But I think that the main thing that I'm seeing that's interesting from a PR perspective is not so much that, because that's very political. But what's interesting is if companies choose to take a hard line with, mandating vaccines or mandating mask wearing, I mean, the vaccines seem to be a bigger issue. But if they take a really hard line there, what happens if they have people walk out and they have people sue them,
right? And
they suddenly lose business and they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, right. And it's a crisis communications,
and their whole business model is disrupted, right? So what's the PR?
So they need to be prepared for that. If they don't do it, they may have people upset as well. But,
right.
But the other thing to take into consideration is that it seems like we've been getting different messaging and different information over time. So the thing that I would warn companies about is taking too hard of a line too soon before there's not more information out, right? It does seem like it's shifting a lot, right? Now we're told to do this and then something changes, and then we're told to do this and then it feels like something else. And I think the danger of companies following that too closely in lockstep is that customers could feel gaslighted, right? Because they could feel like, well, you told me this, and now it's not true. Now we need a booster shot. Well, you told me this. Well, now it's not true. People with COVID vaccines are still dying of COVID. Yeah. Well, you told me that, right? So you don't know where things are going. And I just think as a brand, it's always better to err to the side of caution.
So that's what I was going to say. So I think you're right about like a crisis communications plan. So I don't think that a lot of these companies really had a good one, like a good response or if our plan A doesn't go so well, like what's our plan B, right?
Right. It's not clear from the initial watching of this that they were prepared for this, or that they even realized it was a possibility. Yeah. That people would push back, or that
right.
pilots would walk out.
Right. I think it starts from like the very beginning that people are so surprised that so many people are not willing to get vaccinated, because in the beginning, most people seem to be clamoring and trying to cut in line to get it. Well, when those people got it, then there was a whole bunch of other people who were like, no, thanks. And I think that was the first big sort of unpreparedness by the country at large, right? Mm-hmm. And now that it's kind of gotten whittled down to where we are now, every company needs to have a contingency plan and a crisis comms plan. And so if we enact this strict guideline and we have a backlash, what's our messaging? But also, and this isn't really a PR person's job, but what is our actual business response? Mm-hmm. And what PR messaging can come out of that? Mm-hmm. So maybe messaging around like why we have decided to mandate this, or why we have not decided to mandate this, or why we've decided to sort of do a hybrid like some companies are doing. And then what could be the, let's say, 2 or 3 worst case scenarios that come out of any of those? What is the business response to those? And what's the messaging that comes out of that business response? And they just have to deploy it, and they really have to stand by it. And I think if they do, they will be way better off, at least in the short term, and they could come out, with their head still above water. Now, I mean, the way as a consumer I deal with it is I haven't gotten on a plane for I don't know how many years, even before the pandemic. I can't think of anything less enjoyable. The like stress and the angst of getting there on time and getting there ahead of time and having to put your, take your shoes off and all of that. So to go on a flight,
you're walking around half naked with people like patting you down, and
right, taking off your belt, taking off. I mean, in front of like
take your jacket off. And you're like, this isn't really. It's like a camisole.
Right. I have like a camisole on underneath or something. I know. I mean, it's happened. Right. This isn't really a jacket. It's like my shirt today. Actually, right. You don't think that when you get
outfit.
Right.
Yeah. So ridiculous.
I mean,
and it's also like a germ festation machine. I don't know. It's like flying.
Oh yeah, well totally. So anyway, now
with like recycled air with all these other people, and
right. So it makes sense to wear a mask actually on a plane.
Oh, I always have. I have for years.
I would never have done it because I would have thought it was like crazy. But I always knew that I got sick on planes.
People looked at me like I was straight up crazy. And I was wearing a mask in February before the pandemic hit.
Oh, you might have saved yourself.
No, I got it. I got it in March. I either got it in Vegas or New York. I don't know. I mean, and the funny thing is that in February, people were looking at me as I was nuts. And then a month later, I was like, see? I'm not crazy.
No, I mean, I'll probably wear a mask on the subway, like so many public transportation. But anyway, getting back to the crux of it, I haven't really thought of it this way because we went back in history and all of the requirements that have been put on us mostly since 9/11, right? And now because of the pandemic, it has been a lot of for your safety and for your health. Kind of can't argue with it in one way if you're like an alarmist,
right? But it also is taking away your civil liberties, stripped like bit by bit by bit.
So anyway, what do you do from a PR perspective as a business to ensure that you are coming off like you are a reasonable member of the business community that is doing the best for its customers that is rational?
Right. And I think you have to be aware also of like the sentiment around vaccinations as it relates to your target audience. So for example, the Black community is by and large not in favor of the vaccinations. So I think only last I heard it was about 20% are pro-vaccine. So that leaves 80% that are not. So the other thing you have to factor in is being very careful around messaging. Because I mean, if you're going out and saying everyone who's not getting a vaccine is stupid, you got to be real careful and really understand and not just say, oh, of course everyone thinks like this, because they might not. And you might really offend people. And then you might end up with lawsuits, walkouts, customers leaving.
Well, they were talking about that. I don't know how current the information was. I was listening to something on YouTube where they were saying that only 43% of FDNY are vaccinated.
No, and there are healthcare workers that have gotten fired for not getting vaccinated and are now suing.
That's a little bit different. It's a public service versus like consumer good. But be that as it may, it seems to me like a lot of companies are taking the hard line of tough shit. Like that's their PR message. I don't know if you're getting that feeling in Arizona, like what you're hearing. But that's kind of what I'm hearing in New York.
It's different here because the culture is different here, which is why I can sort of speak down the middle, because I know people on both sides of this equation, right? So there are definitely people here who would stop using a brand if they found out that they mandated vaccines for their employees, right? Or for example, if there ends up being one airline that doesn't do it and everyone else does, I guarantee you people who feel like they want to fight for civil liberties over doing what they're told, whatever, however you want to frame the debate, that's, and they would be more inclined to then only use that airline moving forward.
You've talked about this before in terms of as a business owner deciding that you're going to take a side,
right?
And it may work out for you because you may corner the market of people who are like-minded.
Yep.
Like the My Pillow guy, right?
100%, Mike Lindell. Yeah.
So if you feel that you're bold enough and confident in at least cornering that segment of the market, and they'll buy from you over and over and over again. But I think that we're talking about a broader message of either, like we're saying, service workers or consumer goods, that they want to, in all likelihood, capture as much of the broad population as possible. Most of the companies that you hear about in the news these days are not doing a very good job of any of it.
And that's what's concerning me, is that it feels like there's a lot of action without thought.
Yeah.
And then that's what needs to be looked at carefully and needs to be planned for, because you got to make sure you're doing the right thing and not just following along and then following along without thinking through the consequences. And then suddenly you've got a crisis. I just think you need to be very careful as a brand not to make a big sweeping decision and then not think through what happens if scenario A unfolds, B, C, D. There are a lot of permutations of what can happen next, right? It can look simple, but it's not.
Well, right. So you have to figure out as a business, what are the principles that you stand on? And you better have them if you're a real business, right?
And be certain that what you're doing, and not just because
you're blowing with the wind. And I mean, I think most businesses will probably take the our people, need to be vaccinated. And so you have to be able to stand by that and deal with the fallout of losing staff, customers, your business maybe dramatically changing for the short term or the long term. But,
But make sure that that's your move before you risk all of that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, so a lot of these ultimate decisions have to be made at very high levels, like CEO level kind of decisions. And then they need to be accurately and carefully communicated through all of the channels of marketing and sales and PR, right?
Yeah, but I think it's publicists' job still to inform those executives on the potential fallout, right?
Because a lot of reporters are not being kind, right? And so you should look at the airlines, right? How are the other airlines being talked about? What are they doing, and how's it coming off in the media in the past, 3 weeks? What are the consistent negative messages that are coming through? And usually I feel like the way companies are able to sort of break away from the oh, here's another bad company, is come up with some sort of interesting program or idea for your business that is a positive offering to your staff or your customers or both,
right?
And roll that out. And then that becomes well, even though the whole world is, having their vacation plans ruined, if you fly with Delta, they will let you bring any child under age 10 for free, whatever. And then all of a sudden, that kind of thing.
No, and make sure that if you're going to do something like that, you game plan out what happens when you get sued. What happens if you lose the lawsuit, right? So you just got to think these things through.
Right.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying,
so you might say
it through. Don't just do it.
So you might end up saying we knew the pitfalls. We understood this might happen, but it was more important for us to choose the path that we chose.
Right.
And we'll stand by it and we'll make it through.
And what happens if you mandate vaccines and your employees get the vaccines and they end up paralyzed? What if they sue you for making them get something
that harms them? Then you get legal.
Make sure legal and communications are involved. I'm not saying don't do it, just saying make sure you think it through.
I mean, companies have been getting sued for who knows what for many years. And usually these things get settled out of court probably. And so under the terms that it can't be discussed. So I think the bottom line is that any company, brand, or public service, private service, who thinks that they don't need to be prepared for the fallout of whatever side they decide to take of the whole vaccine pandemic issue is a fool. You need to be prepared. And there's always going to be the other side of the story, and nothing's going to be 100% right on depending on what side you take, but you need to take a stand and probably admit to understanding the other side, but that you decided as a business or service you had to take your stance because you felt it was going to help the most people or be in line with your values or touch your customer base the best, etc. Mm-hmm. And that you can't please all of the people all the time, but you are attempting to please the most people that you can during this difficult time.
Right. The thing I would add to that is just being mindful that there are people that think differently than sort of the mainstream way of thinking, that you just need to, as best you can, understand where they're coming from so that your messaging is, as best it can, be respectful of both sides of this of an issue, right? So it's important, I think, as communicators to stay as balanced and centered as possible. I think it's just still important to take into consideration the viewpoint of those you might disagree with. Okay, that was all very heavy. Can we end on something less heavy? Did you watch the Facebook whistleblower revelation?
I did watch some of it earlier today, actually. And I was thinking that I was going to think that she was like baddie, but she wasn't. I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg is a good spokesperson at all, because then I saw a short clip of him speaking and he's just not likable or appealing, or like, how could he be that bad at public speaking at this point? I mean, it's not good. I mean, he makes Bill Gates look like the Fonz, which is hilarious because the Fonz is really not cool at all, but maybe it's like the perfect, it's like the lighting is bad. It's like he's like this sweating and he's like talking in monotone and I'm Mark Zuckerberg and I will, and it's just like, holy shit.
Amazing.
What do you think?
I need to watch the whole 60 Minutes interview.
I mean, why you wouldn't like practice being a smoother, more relaxed speaker at this point? It just boggles the mind. Or hire, your WAS or whatever, like to do the talking, the co-CEO or something, if you're just never going to be able to be, he's just not likable, trustworthy, nothing. I mean, it's just horrible, bad. And she copied 10,000 documents talking about how they were putting profit over, the safety of humanity, basically. And I think that the free market and capitalism and and everybody has the choice to look at it or not look at it. But I think that the founding fathers and the next waves and waves and waves of people who made laws and stuff, they never saw something like this coming. Mm-hmm. The science fiction writers definitely saw this coming, but like the people who are like elected into offices and the business, they never saw this coming. And I do think, and I understand now, that these social media platforms are kind of controlling people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
Without them really understanding.
All these
algorithms. It's all they see. It's all they do. It's all they...
And it happens in both, in both camps. It's like you end up with two totally different Americas.
Yes. And back in the day when there was only, a limited number of TV channels, everybody was watching the same news. So there was maybe more of a foundational understanding or agreement. And now everybody is siloed. It started with cable TV, like the news channel, the sports channel, the music channel, right? Where it used to be like a little bit of everything. And then it went to the right-wing news channel and the left-wing news channel, and then the country music station and the rock and roll and the rap. And everything is so divided now that if that's all that the algorithm is showing you, you're going to think that's the greatest thing or the only thing that exists.
You know, the crazy thing is Matt Taibbi just did a story and he was talking about how people on the right or alt-right or whatever, right? If they're listening to these outlets, they know that those outlets are providing news through a lens that caters to them. But he was saying that the left is not aware that that's what's happening. So there's like also this funny disconnect happening.
Could that be because a lot of the media is more left-wing to begin with?
Yes.
That didn't really end on a high note. But what I will say...
Not even close. Let's find another one.
I don't have any high notes in my life right now.
Kitty is always a high note.
Look, she's totally playing possum. She's all round, but she's got one eye open because she's just laying there waiting until I feed her.
What are you having for dinner?
Are you going to have smelly food or smelly food? Smelly food! Yay! You want smelly salmon or smelly salmon?
Smelly cat, what are they feeding you?
It's Phoebe singing.
Smelly cat, it's not your fault. Is she really smelly?
Just her breath when she eats. My cat's breath smells like cat food.
Shocking. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast.
And thank you to Kaila for joining us for an interesting interview.
Remember to submit your own agency stories and questions, and please share our show with your friends and colleagues. If you subscribe and leave us a rating, it will also help us reach new listeners like you.
And if you have an anonymous PR horror story of your own, please send it our way at the contact email below the episode notes.
Can't wait to wind down with you again next time.